Everyone, Isaiah Henry here, First Position Real Estate. Welcome to the First Position Real Estate Show. Shout out to the Giants 2-0, so holla at your boy there. Super excited for today's episode. I'm in a different location, trying something different with the lighting, so hopefully you guys like it. Today we have on Chris Sayers. He's a great investor, works in the multifamily space, so super excited to have him on here, share a little bit about what he's got going on. Updates from me, new co-op season, so co-op students started, so that's amazing to get working with them. September 25th, guys, we're almost here. Sunday, it's gonna pop off, the Rookie Real Estate Investment Workshop. If you haven't got your tickets, I still have a few left. Make sure you go ahead and get your tickets. Links up in the bio there, or DM me directly, sorry. Chris is right here, so let me get him in here and we'll get this thing going. What happened? Sorry guys, little technical difficulties for your boy. Sorry, Chris, give me 1 second. Sorry about that. Chris, you want to go request to invite, actually? That might be easier. Okay, that should work. Man, I must look mad weird when I'm trying to get someone on here, but Chris should be here in 1 moment. If we can get technology to agree with everyone here. There you go, Chris. Sent you the invite there. You can just join on there as well. What else is going on? We have I got a new property under contract right now. I will be sending out some stuff for the joint ventures in a little bit. So if you're interested in working together on a new project, hit me up. I'd love to hear about it there. So I don't know what is going on. There he is. What's going on, Chris?
How you doing?
Good, man. Sorry, man. I'm telling you, the technical difficulties is crazy. I don't know what's going on with that.
Matt, I just got a new laptop set up. I have no idea what's going on. I got like 4 different USB ports.
Yeah, you're plugging everything in, hitting accept and invite on everything. But
Yeah.
hey, no worries there. Super excited to have you on. So welcome to the First Position Real Estate Show.
Thanks, man. It's great to be here. I've been watching your stuff. I love what you're doing with the government workers. As a government worker myself, I really appreciate what you're doing. I think that it's definitely an underserviced area, and I think that government workers often have a security with their job. It's really resilient in recessionary times, and I think what you're doing is showing that there is another option, and that there is more than the pension. I love that.
Exactly. Well, I appreciate that. I'm glad my message is getting across there. But I'll flip it back on you, man. I've been watching you take down some big stuff, doing what you're doing there. And again, someone else comes on my live with better facial hair than me, so I really gotta step up my game with the mustache there. So, but before we get going, Chris, why don't you give us a 30-second, kind of deep dive what you got going on?
Yeah. So basically, started real estate in 2017. It started with an ad on YouTube. Grant Cardone came on the screen. It's like, who's this guy with a funny accent? And I just started underwriting deals, and it was just like commercial from the very get-go. I didn't really know about the smaller stuff. And so I realized like these are $100, $200, $300 million deals. Okay, Chris, you need to take a step back and start from the beginning. So in 2019, we did a duplex conversion. We then did a 7-plex from there. We did a 6-plex wholesale, and then we just today got a triplex conversion under contract 20 minutes ago. So I'm really—
There you go.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome.
In a nutshell.
Awesome, man. Well, that's huge. and it's kind of almost like a blessing and a curse because like for me, I call it the condo curse. Like I started with like condos, and everyone's like, oh, don't do condos, and I'm like, well, I wouldn't say don't do them, but it's kind of like you get started, and then as you learn, things happen. And for you, it just happened that commercial hit your plate first, and then you start underwriting like that, and before you know it, you're like, hey, like I'm a commercial guy. So I love that, and I'm actually have a couple questions to dive in on that if that's cool with you.
For sure. Yeah, man. Let's go for it.
Awesome, man. So first question I got here. So when you're looking at a multifamily property, one of the things you look to do is like stabilize it. You're most likely not buying a fully turnkey renovated property. We're going to usually add some value. So what are three things that you like to do when you're stabilizing a property, just at a high level?
Okay, so number one, the very first thing you want to know is the amount of debt load that that building can carry. So your DCR. The DCR, especially for value add, if it's turnkey, it's different. Like you know what you're doing and you're just cool with keeping your money in. But if you're doing a value add burr on these buildings, your DCR is the number one thing you need to know because everything else is irrelevant. ARV has no. You can get an ARV, millions above what you're projecting. It means nothing. So you have to have DCR in place. After your DCR, reverse engineer the deal. So from there, I would reverse engineer the deal. Now you know the debt load approximately, and then you can know exactly what your renos, your capital, your down payment, your holding costs, your closing costs, and you can minus it from your new loan that you projected. And
Nice.
then the thing would be the main thing is know your tenants. And this is where like know your tenants before you even purchase the property.
Okay.
So utilize your walkthroughs, always 3 or 4 walkthroughs of your conditional offer, and get a feel for who you're dealing with. Because especially on the smaller side, like that, like 5, 6, 7 unit range, one tenant can ruin the whole deal. Whereas like if you have a 20, 30, 40, 50 unit, you can get away with having a few bad apples. So
Yeah.
definitely know who you're dealing with. Yeah.
Good stuff. So let me break that down a little bit more. So for most of us or for some who don't know, what is a DCR and how can someone find that number?
Yeah. So your DCR, your debt coverage ratio, typically what that is basically the amount of debt the building can service. So the banks typically want to see a number between 1.25 and 1.35. So for instance, if you had a 1.2, that would be 25% more that you would be cash flowing at the bank on top of your mortgage. So anything less than 1 is considered you would be negative cash flow in the bank size. Okay, so they want to see 1.25 to 1.35. Some banks will go as low as 1.15, 1.17, depending on the area. And that's just a metric used for their safety, what they feel comfortable lending on. Those requirements are getting tighter and tighter as the interest rates go up.
Yeah, definitely. I'm seeing the same thing. And then the last thing I wanted to dive in from that point there is you said know your tenants. Does that mean like you need to like go shake hands and like have dinner with each of them, or what do you mean by know your tenants?
Know your tenants as in your very first walkthrough of the property, you're scouting out every single unit. Okay, what's the condition, the living? Most times the tenants are if they are low-income tenants, most of the time they won't be working, right? So they'll be at the apartment during the day, during your walkthrough, say hi, get to know them. I've had instances where you go in and it'll be a tenant, and the very first thing they say is, I am going to be here for the next 30 years. And so, and that's very, because they've been through the dance a million times. You got to take all of that into account, especially when you're with these buildings, like you said, they don't cash flow. Most of the time you're closing private. So there is a risk involved where you need to be sure you can do a turnover.
Gotcha. I like that there. That actually kind of rolls into my second question I have here. So when we're talking about taking over buildings, like you said, we like to do value add projects, whether that's in the form of renovations, amenities. But for this example, we'll talk about like increasing rents. So how do you go about tenant turnover? And before I let you answer there, there's always that, jargon out in the thing, oh, you just buy the building and turn over the tenants. Just get them out and flip them over. But that's said so generally, but I know, especially in Ontario, there's a whole lot that goes in this. So I'd love for you to dive in a little bit on that.
Yeah, there's a whole lot. And so my experience varies. I've done it, I think, in total of 9 times, and every single experience has been different. It's never been a smooth process. And so, it's also area dependent. So if you're in a big city like Toronto, here where I live in Kitchener, I grew up in Scarborough, those areas, it's going to be very difficult to do because the rents are extremely high, the inventory is low. But if you're in like Timmins, Sudbury, areas like that, it's much easier to get somebody to go into a different place for like almost the same amount of rent that they're currently in. Or there's other areas, because right now there's people renting in Toronto that are like 800 and you're going in for like 3,000, right?
Yeah.
So, there's a huge variety. But I would say that it's very important that you have a conversation with them. You go about it in a compassionate way. You don't hit them right away with the ultimatum. You do it with a human way, and at the end of the day, you can't force anybody. You have to carry that into your risk profile with this type of investment. But there are means to it, and basically with these distressed buildings, generally there is tons of electrical, plumbing, mold remediation, asbestos, all of that needs to be addressed, and usually there's some sort of form that you can do in order to perpetuate that, and that's usually the route that we would go.
Gotcha. So what you're doing is like the renovation where you need vacant possession, and that's like your lever that you're looking to use when you're coming into the buildings.
And we also find them the unit. We pay their moving costs plus the cash as well. And so they're profiting, and usually they're ecstatic. And the thing about the building that we have, like it was very condemned. Like it was in bad, rough shape with a couple bad tenants. And all the other good tenants wanted to leave already, right?
Yeah.
Enough. And so when you have a problem tenant in the building, generally there's other people that are like sick of it and they've been dealing with it for years, and they're just waiting for somebody to like, hey, we'll set this up for you, we'll help you out, and it's usually a win-win situation, and that's the key, win-win. If it's not a win-win, they will. I've seen people turn down. I've heard friends that have $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 in cash for keys, and the tenants turn it down.
Yeah, that's. I remember I was working on a wholesale deal in Sudbury, and I'm just down to like I have one tenant out, but I need at least one more to make it work. So I'm talking with this guy back and forth. I'm doing like all sorts of like psychological judo, and I just can't make it work. So I said, "Hey, what's your number?" And he's like, 40,000. I said, "No problem. I can meet you at 40,000." Calls me back next day. He's like, "I lied. It's got to be 50,000." I'm like, "It's a 2-bedroom unit." I'm like, $50,000 to get out of a 2-bedroom unit, man. I can't make it work. Like it's just, but yeah, it's crazy to see that, the kind of numbers people are throwing out for cash for keys.
Yeah.
But in terms of what you're doing, like you said, you're not coming in there slapping them with a check. First of all, you're trying to make that win-win scenario right off the bat.
Win-win scenario off the bat, and I give them always 2 options. So
okay.
There's always the option where we can go the route of that, or we can go the N11 route and just do it, between the tenant and I with a separate negotiation that doesn't involve the landlord-tenant board.
Yes.
And we can just have that conversation, work out that deal, instead of having to get, dealing with the permits and showing the proof of work and all of that. So there are other options, and you can, offer more money when you go with the N11. There's definitely room for negotiation, but at the end of the day, if they don't want to leave, there's nothing that you can do unless, you are doing a demolition. But then again, we know that you have to let them come back in.
Yes. Right? And I'm very happy that you've said that, because, there's a whole lot of people playing in that space who are very confident, I just go get them out or I just flip them. Like, it's not possible. I'm like, we live in Ontario. We live by a very strict set of rules, in my opinion. And if you're not going to that win-win scenario with your tenants, just going in there with like, hey, here's some money and leave, it's probably not going to work out as a great investment for you. So I love that you've shared that and kind of ironed that out for people looking in that space there.
Yes, yeah. If I've never filed an N13, but if you file an N13, which is the renovation, and you're a corporation, you best be making sure that you let that tenant come back in, because it's over $250,000 fine.
Yeah. And just on that point, like, you're just adding so much complexity. Like, let's say we're doing this on like a 5 to 7, so not a massive apartment, so 5 to 7. So you're gonna put like so much at risk, because like for one apartment to do that, like, listen, if you can't make the deal work, like, maybe that's one you walk away from. I'm not saying like you can't do it, like it's not possible, but is like, is the juice really worth the squeeze in that point?
They go back to the first point of know your tenants, because you can get a gist of it and what they want within 30 minutes of your walkthrough, and you can get and then you've got 3 more walkthroughs during your conditional period where you're starting even more conversations just subtly. And now you can go in confident knowing that, okay, I know I can do this year, I can't do this year. Okay, then these mean my numbers are going to be like this now. Okay,
Yeah.
so you can work it out that way.
I love that. I love that. That's really good. We'd have to, get off camera. I'd love to sit down and just go through your underwriting process. That'd be such a cool experience there. But I'll move on to my final question I have for you. So financing, these aren't like, small single family deals where you're just popping off 20% here and there. Usually needs a little bit of capital. I'd love to know how you're financing deals or how you would explain to a newer investor looking to get into that 5 to 10 unit space.
So main thing I would say, and it all depends on your strategy. So let's just say we're talking about value add, because that's the majority of what people. Okay. With value add, how you have to have a foundation. If you don't have a foundation of other properties before going into larger purchase prices of these 5, 7, 8, 9, 10 unit, where you don't have a high net worth, you're going to have to be the active partner and source the capital, which is something that I definitely don't recommend starting out. You should have a handful of deals on your own that you've done, or that you have some skin in the game, especially when you're dealing with cap rates, because as much as it's good to go up, it can go down really fast. When you get capex calls. Whereas with residential, you might make a mistake, but the residential will carry the price because the neighborhood is based on comparables. So
yeah.
It's different. You can mess up a multifamily much faster. And so I would say, have a foundation, then borrow against your foundation. So cross collateralization. Make sure you have enough in your fund, and then roll that over into the next one. And that way, you can get a good grasp. And now I'm at the point now where when I go to the next one, I have people that now are willing to lend to me because of my track record. And so once you get one or two of these in your track record, private lenders will be more willing to lend large amounts based on your experience. And that's how you on these deals, because you are not going to get A financing, B financing, maybe not even C financing. It's going to be very hard, because the distressed building with $500, $600 rents is there's no way you're getting that financed.
Yeah, like the deal doesn't it barely makes sense on paper. Before I kind of get to that part, I just wanted to backtrack, and I really loved how you explained kind of like a progression, because a lot of people, you'll hear the take action. So everyone's like, okay, cool, I'm gonna go buy a 10 unit, I'm gonna borrow other people's money, burr everything out, and give it back to my investors in 6 months. And I'm like, whoa, bro, you haven't even bought a single family home. And I think the way you explained it, you build that base, whether you're doing single, small, multis, build some capital, take the equity from that, and then collateralize that to move into the multifamily. Because you're right. If I'm an investor, would I rather give someone who's never done a large multi my money to invest, or maybe someone like Chris who's done a couple and not looks like it, who's actually killing the game? That makes a lot more sense. So I love how you explained that there. Did you kind of come up with that yourself, or was that maybe from like a mentor or a coach?
To a point where, three most important things, like you were saying, your mortgage broker is your most important member on your team. I can't stress that enough. They make or break everything for you, especially in the privates world. If you're not raising capital on your own and you have a mortgage broker who is vouching for you, they're the ones who are going to source the capital for you. And they'll vouch for you based on your experience. So you can't do that without them. And they will be the ones who will help, formulate a plan with your input as well, and come up with a game plan to get you along that path. The good ones will. So you have to find ones that are specializing in commercial multifamily.
There you go. I like Gabe. Right back to the team. I feel like that's a common theme with everyone that I talk to. You're doing enough work on yourself by yourself, but it's those team members who really kind of tip over into you being super successful and stuff like that. But yeah, wow. That's awesome. A whole lot to digest for the multifamily. Anything else you wanted to add on the multifamily front?
I would just say, know your exit. Your exit's your most important, and also take a course. It's not all about numbers. It's not all about tenants and turnover and all of that. Take a course on construction, because when you go into these buildings, you want to lower your expenses. It's not just raising your income. And to lower your expenses, there's so many different, things that you can do. And to know that, and not just put it in the hands of contractors, because we all know that, there has to be supervision there, and you've got to dictate the best course of action for that property. So I would say know your boilers, know your heat pumps, know how to get your water down, and all the different tactics for that.
Good stuff. Yeah. Hey, that's another good thing that, people, because everyone knows NOI divided by cap gives you the value and stuff like that formula. But people focus, I bet, a lot on, hey, let's raise income. Let's raise income, kick out tenants, raise rents. But at the same expense, if you're able to drop water, cut that in half, imagine what that does for your NOI and then in terms of your value there. So that's an amazing point there. So I love that.
We had a boiler that we had 2 valves we had to change, as well as a thermometer added to it to control how hot the boiler rads get, the water lines get, which when we bought the building, it didn't have one. So it would just go to its max amount of temperature and stay there. So just by doing that, we saved over $400 a month from Enbridge in gas.
Get out of here.
12 months divided by a 5 cap.
That's
that's a tenant over in itself. So
yeah, that's it right there. Yeah, so that's really interesting, because I'm sure when you looked at that building versus someone else, someone's like, oh man, I can't raise rents, not a good deal. But you might look at that building and say, hey, I might not be able to raise rents right away, but I see these 3 things where I can lower expenses and then still be able to raise the NOI of that building.
Exactly. Yeah, it's powerful tool.
Awesome, man. I love it. I love it. Now, Chris, where can people find more about you if they want to invest, learn a little bit more about what they do, and where can they locate you?
Yeah, they can find me at Chris Sayers Invest on Instagram. They can reach out there, and I'm always willing to help. So just send me a DM, and I'm glad to help out wherever needed. Awesome, man. That's perfect. You guys heard it here first. It's Chris Sayers. Turning into one of the multifamily moguls. So super excited you had us. We had a chance to have you on today. Anything else you wanted to say to anyone before we wrap it up here? I would say these might seem like scary times, and I would say, but there's definitely deals to be had. They're coming down the pipeline. We're already starting to see it, and I think that 2023 is going to be an amazing year. For sure. Awesome. Oh, I love it. Love it. Chris just dropping the knowledge bombs there. Guys, you heard it here first. It's Isaiah Henry, First Position Real Estate. We had Chris Sayers on today, dropping a whole bunch of facts on the multifamily game. So if you guys want to re-listen to that, I'd love for you guys to do that there. Chris, thanks so much for joining us. And until next time, hope you have yourself a great day, man. Take care, man. Bye. All right. Bye.